Well, let's run the XRF. Yeah, so I'm going to scamper down there and do some scans. Okay.
An XRF scanner has just detected traces of silver in sealed soil beneath a 40,000-pound boulder, one that remarkably, no treasure hunter has disturbed in over 200 years of searching. Yet for Ian Spooner, that isn't even the most surprising discovery on Lot 8 of Oak Island. Beneath the boulder lies a circular stone structure so deliberate, so precisely constructed, and so carefully concealed that every expert examining it is thinking the same thing. There's a growing sense of anticipation. People believe that once the rock is fully removed, there could be a breakthrough, a moment where everything finally makes sense. For the first time, it feels like they might get a real answer. Is there something hidden beneath it or not? What they're uncovering may predate every known chapter of the Oak Island story. If it connects to what the team already suspects, it won't just add to the mystery, it could completely rewrite it. "I've never seen anything like this here," Spooner says. This boulder had gone untouched for 2 centuries. Not by the early treasure hunters of the 1800s who flooded the money pit and lost lives in the process. Not by the syndicates that drilled, blasted, and drained the area throughout the 20th century. Not even by the Lagina team during their early years of systematically documenting every anomaly on the island. What makes it even stranger is that the boulder sat in plain sight on Lot 8, in an open field, visible to anyone who passed by. Yet it appears nowhere in historical records, not in notes, sketches, or any of the extensive documentation produced during 2 centuries of intense searching. As much as everyone wants answers, there's also caution. Rushing the process with destructive methods could mean losing critical information forever. Just a week ago, the team finally moved the massive stone. Using heavy equipment, they shifted all 40,000 pounds. What they found beneath it wasn't natural bedrock or ordinary soil. Instead, there was a carefully arranged ring of smaller stones surrounding a filled-in depression, packed earth forming what looked like a sealed hole. This wasn't a random geological feature. It was intentional. Someone had created it and then gone to great lengths to hide it. Rick surveys the site alongside archaeologist Fiona Steele and Jack Begley. They move carefully around the exposed area as Fiona's team slowly removes layers of soil. The excavation is meticulous, with every step documented, because missing even a small detail here could mean losing it forever. "Look at the progress we've made," Fiona says. Rick steps closer and studies the formation. On one side, the stones are arranged in a way that suggests they were built to bear weight, like a support system or foundation. On the other side, that same structure is completely absent. The contrast is striking. One side appears engineered to hold the massive boulder in place, while the other side doesn't. "It's interesting how the rocks are structured on this side," Rick notes, "and we're not seeing the same thing on the other side," comes the response. It raises a critical question. Why was only one side built this way? It's not just curiosity. It could reveal the purpose behind the entire structure. Fiona believes the feature is very old, older than the 1700s in fact. That places it before the first recorded treasure hunts on Oak Island, before the legends of the money pit even began. Whatever was built here predates the story everyone knows. Spooner returns to Lot 8 with his XRF scanner. He had already taken samples weeks earlier, right after the boulder was moved, and the results were significant enough to bring him back. Those earlier tests showed unusually high levels of lead, far above what you'd expect in untouched soil with no industrial history. On its own, that might not mean much, but in this context, buried beneath a massive stone covering a man-made depression, it suggests something far more specific. When elevated lead appears alongside signs of combustion in sealed underground soil, it often points to controlled underground fire. Not surface fires, but sustained heat used intentionally below ground. This aligns with an old mining technique known as fire setting. Before explosives, miners would build fires against rock surfaces to crack them with heat. It was widely used in medieval times, especially during the 1300s and 1400s. The implication is striking. Someone may have been digging tunnels here centuries ago using early mining methods. Now, Spooner runs the scanner again on a fresh soil sample. He watches the readings carefully. "This is showing something I didn't see before," he says, choosing his words cautiously as he studies the data. Whatever the scanner is revealing, it may be even more significant than what they found the first time. He glances up from the device and says, "There's something here I didn't see before. It's showing silver." The word lands heavily. Silver, detected in sealed, undisturbed soil beneath a massive boulder that no one had touched in over 200 years of searching. Fiona freezes. Rick lets out a slow breath. Spooner studies the screen again, double-checking the reading with the kind of caution that comes when the stakes are high and there's no room for error. But the result is clear. He read it correctly. Later that morning, Spooner returns to the excavation site just as Fiona's team finishes clearing the last of the backfilled soil. What's revealed stops him in his tracks. Beneath where the boulder once sat is a tightly packed layer of flat stones, deliberately placed, carefully arranged, and clearly not the result of natural forces. These stones haven't shifted over time or been scattered by weather. Each one appears intentionally positioned, fitting together with precision. Surrounding this central layer is a circular ring of stones forming a kind of cradle, an engineered boundary that seems designed to hold shape and protect whatever lies beneath from the immense weight above. Whoever built this understood structure and purpose. The geometry isn't accidental, it's intentional. This isn't like anything we've seen on Oak Island, or even in Nova Scotia, Fiona says. It's completely unique. She steps back, studying the formation, then looks directly at Spooner. "Tell me if I'm wrong," she says, "but this doesn't feel natural at all." Spooner doesn't hesitate. "It's not natural. It can't be, especially with the organic material surrounding those stones." He walks along the edge, examining how the outer ring connects to the inner stone layer. The more he looks, the clearer it becomes. "I've never seen anything like this," he admits. "I'm honestly blown away. The structure is now unmistakable, a circular formation at the base with a visible cradle of stones around it. It's precise, deliberate, and unlike anything typically formed by nature." Then comes the key realization. This stone, Spooner says, is either a marker or it's protecting something. It could have been placed to identify a specific location, or it could have been meant to seal whatever lies beneath, ensuring it would never be uncovered by accident. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Someone came here with purpose. They had the knowledge, the tools, and the manpower to build this structure, and they knew exactly what they were doing. The massive boulder above it was no coincidence. It was part of the design, meant to keep everything below hidden and secure. Fiona is already thinking ahead. "I want to keep removing the soil," she says, pointing to the circular ring. "If this pattern continues, there could be something underneath. Was something intentionally buried here?" Deep down, she already believes the answer is yes. The real question is, what? Everything about the site points in one direction. Spooner has studied geology across Oak Island and Nova Scotia for years. He knows how glaciers move stones, how freeze-thaw cycles shape the land, and how water sorts and deposits material over time. But natural processes don't create perfectly circular stone formations. They don't arrange flat stones into tightly fitted layers beneath a single massive boulder. And they don't fill a cylindrical hole with packed soil and then cap it with 40,000 pounds of stone. Nature simply doesn't work with that level of precision or intention. "We need to examine everything carefully," Fiona says. "We can't afford to miss anything. There could be something valuable down there." The plan is to continue excavating slowly and methodically. Eventually, they'll remove the stones themselves to see what's being protected, but not before every detail is documented. Each layer is recorded. Every stone is measured and mapped. Because if this site is as significant as it appears, even the smallest detail could matter later. Missing something now wouldn't just be a mistake, it would be irreversible. That afternoon, Rick returns to the site with Laird and a researcher named Peter, an expert in ancient stone structures. Peter has spent years studying megalithic constructions across North America and Europe. Massive stone platforms, dolmens, and chambers built by ancient cultures with a deep understanding of engineering and geometry. Rick has been quiet most of the day, but now he speaks. "I've worked with stone for years," he says, standing at the edge of the excavation. "And when I look at this, I can't help but wonder, how did they do it? And more importantly, why would they do it unless they were burying something underneath?" He pauses, looking down into the formation. "And if something is buried there," he adds, "then it must have been important. Valuable enough for someone to invest this kind of effort and manpower." Peter steps forward, immediately recognizing the significance. The structure in front of him isn't random. It speaks a language he understands well. "I strongly believe what we're looking at is a European-style megalithic structure," Peter says. "Building something like this requires a deep understanding of physics and geometry, the kind of knowledge that arrived in North America with European explorers. Indigenous communities likely wouldn't have had the tools, the need, or the reason to move a boulder of this size or construct something like this." He continues, explaining that this kind of project would have required immense effort, careful planning, and a very specific purpose. "That's why I think there has to be something more here," he adds. "Maybe there is." Laird, however, focuses on the location itself rather than just the structure. The site sits in an open field, with no nearby landmarks or obvious reason for why this exact spot would have been chosen. "On its own, this doesn't make much sense," Laird says. "It's basically in the middle of nowhere. And yet, someone invested everything into building here. Enough manpower to move a 40,000-pound boulder, enough engineering knowledge to design a load-bearing stone cradle beneath it, and enough confidence in their purpose to complete the work and seal it, without leaving a single visible clue behind." Back in 2020, the team discovered a stone roadway in the southeastern part of the Oak Island swamp. That structure was dated to at least 500 years ago, and has been tentatively linked to early Portuguese exploration along the Atlantic coast, possibly even before Columbus. Adding to that mystery is a 14th century Portuguese silver coin reportedly found near the money pit in 1849. If authentic, it suggests that someone connected to Portugal may have reached the island long before the officially recorded European presence in Nova Scotia. The construction style seen on Lot 8, its scale, precision, and deliberate concealment, fits closely with the kind of tradition Peter is describing. Rick acknowledges this directly. It's almost certainly European in origin. The discussion keeps returning to the scale of the effort involved. Moving a massive stone is one thing, but planning and executing a structure like this is something else entirely. You don't create a perfectly circular stone arrangement by accident. You don't fill a pit and cap it with a massive boulder without knowing exactly what you're doing. And you certainly don't carry out that level of work in a remote, seemingly random location without a compelling reason. Rick asks Peter directly, "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" Peter answers simply, "No. Whatever this is, it's unique. And whatever it's protecting must have been important enough to deserve permanent protection." Rick nods, recognizing the potential implications. "This could change the history of Nova Scotia," he says. Later, Rick calls Marty Lagina, who has been off the island but closely following the discoveries. He hands the phone to Fiona, who carefully shows Marty the site, walking him through the exposed stone layer, the circular cradle structure, and the evidence of deliberate backfilling. "It's completely lined with stone," Fiona explains. "It's clearly man-made and very intentional." Marty takes it all in, then points out something crucial. There's no record of this boulder ever being disturbed by previous searchers. Nothing in the historical accounts. He pauses before adding, "That means we might be the first people in modern history to examine this site." For over 200 years, Oak Island has been the focus of intense exploration. The money pit has been drilled, flooded, and re-drilled countless times. The swamp has been drained and mapped. Stone roads have been uncovered. Boreholes and underground chambers have been scanned. Millions of dollars have been spent chasing a mystery that has cost lives, fortunes, and decades of effort. And yet, this carefully constructed, deliberately hidden feature, buried beneath a massive boulder on Lot 8, was overlooked by everyone. Not because they weren't thorough, but because nothing in the historical record pointed them here. Whoever built and sealed this site either existed before those records began, or intentionally left no trace behind. What happens next remains uncertain. The excavation isn't finished. The stones forming the cradle and the central layer haven't yet been removed. Whatever lies beneath is still sealed, just as it has been since the day it was constructed. Rick stands at the edge of the pit, reflecting on something that hasn't been openly discussed until now. There are no artifacts. At a site this carefully built and engineered, you would expect to find something near the surface. A nail, a shard of pottery, a tool, anything that might help identify who built it or when. But there's nothing. No objects, no debris, no trace of human activity left behind. That absence is telling. It suggests one of two possibilities. Either the builders were extremely careful and left nothing behind, which points to a high level of discipline and intent, or the structure is so old that any surface evidence has long since disappeared. Either way, it points to the same conclusion. That alone suggests something important, Rick says. Either someone went to great lengths to hide what they did here, or this site is incredibly old enough to predate all known searchers, old enough to belong to a chapter of history that hasn't yet been written. This structure may date back to a time before the colonial era, before written records, and even before the first stories of the money pit ever existed. Long before the mystery of Oak Island began, this site could already have been built, sealed, and left undisturbed beneath its massive stone, waiting. Rick understands what needs to happen next, and more importantly, how it needs to be done. We all want answers, he says, but I don't want to rush this in a destructive or invasive way just to get them. When you look at all the evidence together, the picture becomes hard to ignore. A 40,000-pound boulder placed over a clearly man-made feature, a circular ring of carefully arranged stones beneath it, a tightly packed layer of flat stones below that, surrounding soil showing unusually high levels of lead, suggesting underground fire setting, an ancient mining technique, and now traces of silver found in sealed, untouched earth that no known searcher has ever reached. Individually, each of these findings is intriguing. Together, they tell a much stronger story. The XRF scanner results aren't random. Stones don't naturally form precise circular structures. Lead doesn't just appear in buried, undisturbed soil without a cause, and silver doesn't show up in sealed ground without a reason. All signs point to the same conclusion. This was built intentionally. Someone created this structure. Someone carefully sealed it. And for the first time in over 200 years of exploration on Oak Island, the team standing above it may truly be the first people to see it since the day it was hidden.